Close that up. There we go. There I am. Here I am. Close out the music a little bit. There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is John. This is my channel, Your Renaissance Man. It is, let's say, March 23rd, Monday, 2026. So what am I doing here today? First of all, we're a new channel. Well, the channel's new. I'm not new to YouTube. I've done other stuff with YouTube, and I'm kind of spitballing on this channel, doing the type of content that I want to do, but not sure or I should say the style of content, but not sure what I want or what's going to stick as far as substance, the topics. So we're just spitballing. We're trying different ideas. This is something that's a little near and dear to me, and it's relevant, and it's something that's going on right now. So it's easy to talk about. Plus, it's kind of therapeutic to talk about it and all that good stuff, and see if we can develop maybe a little support system on here with our YouTube friends. But like I said, I have another YouTube channel that's, I don't know, I've done over 80 videos on it. So I'm not new to YouTube. I've done 20 some videos on this one. So I got over 100 videos under my belt and got an understanding for some of it now, and feeling more comfortable and willing to dive into some more serious stuff and try some different things as I go fumble around YouTube. And so what I started this live stream for was to talk about being in your 50s and dealing with ADHD and health and just all that kind of fun stuff, when we're young, teen years, 20s, 30s, we feel pretty invincible, and there's a lot of things we can torture our body with, whether it be chemically or physically. And, we have the advantage, the advantage of youth on our side that's going to pull us through that. And, I'm in just getting close to my mid 50s. I'm just a click under my mid. I'm 54 now, and I've had a roller coaster of weight issues throughout my life. And, I'm at a high point again. There's 3 times in my life I was pushing a lot of weight, and I've done it again, unfortunately, and not happy with myself. And I know those of you, if anybody clicks onto this, are seeing it because of ADHD, but it's all going to tie in here in a second. I'm just giving you some background for right now. But so what started this all was I've been diagnosed with ADHD for over a year. Which sounds kind of funny, I think, which may sound funny to some of you because I'm in my 50s, and why look into it now? Why, how did you come onto this, or did it develop later, or whatever? What brought you here? What brings you to talk about ADHD in your 50s and not knowing you had it till then? Well, I've had issues all my life, but it's been undiagnosed. And I have a son who's in his, early mid 20s, and we've talked, it's fun to have a kid it's fun to have an adult child you can have conversations with. He's a really good kid. He's mature. But anyways, so he had been talking about some stuff he was struggling with, and I was sharing similarities with my struggles, and I, not that it matters who looked into it, but I think I may have been the one that looked into ADHD stuff and started reading about it more to get a better understanding of it. Cause you always have these preconceived notions of what everything is, whether it be, well, whatever, addiction, for example. What is addiction really if you haven't gone through it? Well, you got to read about it. Your automatic assumption is something to do with drugs. Well, it's not just drugs you can be addicted to. So anyways, so ADHD, had my preconceived notions about it, which I didn't have anything bad or negative about. I just didn't really know what it was. And my son's mother had some psychological stuff, in her life so where I'm getting at is I've always had kind of a fascination with psychological stuff. And she had some issues that got me just getting more interest in learning about psychology and everything, and what pertained to her in particular. So this kind of encouraged me to go and make another dive and see what ADHD is about. And the more I read about it, the more I was like, this is probably pertains to me. This probably pertains to my son also. And he was in college still. Yeah, he was in college still when he started seeing a doctor about it. Um, and he was diagnosed with it and he was put on meds. Um, and as we were talking, as he's starting his journey with this, and I'm like, okay, for curiosity's sake, I'm gonna go get tested and see what this how if this really is me, and this, at least, according to medical parameters and that kind of stuff, is this me? And yeah, I tested. It's one of those. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to soften it. I'm not trying to make it me sound better or worse. The way the psychologist presented to me was, he goes, you can be diagnosed with it, you do show signs of it, but part of it is your ability to survive in life, get through your day to day, hold a job, that kind of stuff. And he was kind of explaining the depths of it, not just the test itself. It's a combined opinion based on other things, not just the written, the testing you do. And he's like, well, you've gotten to this point in life and you haven't looked into it yet, so it's probably not that big of a deal to you, you know. And I mean, I agreed with him. Um, where I brought reason I brought it in was, or brought it to him, was to find out more, was I was the way I've been managing it all my life. On Let me say it a different way. Well, I should say, yeah, I've been trying to manage it all my life on my own, but not really know what I'm trying to manage, if that makes sense. Um, so knowing that I had difficulties with things, with attention, focus, that kind of stuff, it would wax and wane. Particularly, in particular, it went up and down with the seasons. So my work is physical outdoor work, and I live in a winter state. We get snow, and I do winter work outside, but it's running equipment in a cab and that kind of stuff. And it's not as many hours per day as often and frequency. And so I got a lot of downtime in the winter. And those, ADHD, we do better with structure. We do better with accountability. And so when I have a lot of downtime, I don't have accountability anymore. I don't have anybody leaning on me, uh, expecting me to do something, perform, whatever. And accountability helps me huge. Accountability gets my butt moving, gets me like, I can't let this person down. I got to get this done. So, anyways, so what brought me to the psychologist to look in this deeper was, as I was starting to figure out that I probably had it, and the ways I was managing it wasn't totally bad. And the ways I was managing it was, or tried to, was regular gym, physical fitness, regular visits to the gym. And that was a great way to start my day. Just the endorphins and stuff like that. It set the pace for my day. This is when I'm explaining how, when I'm functioning well, when my brain's working, I'm, not falling back on my responsibilities, things getting done, life's in balance. That's kind of way it functions the best. And I would also take Sudafed occasionally, and that would help me focus. And there's some of some of the active ingredients in Sudafed is what's in Adderall. It's in a much smaller dose, but there's similar stuff in Sudafed. And I didn't know about that till later, but I had noticed that I had sinus stuff and I had some pressure and locking in. And I felt like at times when I was struggling, I felt like I wasn't breathing as well and I was having like oxygen deprivation. and I have a very restricted airway. My nose is very restricted, and I breathe normally when I'm fine, but I'm also allergic to everything that pollinates. And I live in a state that's green, so there's always stuff growing here in the summer. And so I would take Sudafed when I'd kind of feel this restriction of breathing or whatever, and I'd feel kind of a little bit numb in the forehead, and kind of attribute it to seasonal allergies. And I would take fast, the 4 hour Sudafed, the little red tablets, the fast acting ones. And that would always, I shouldn't say always, most of the time that would help me, and it would kind of reel me back in. And that combined with caffeine on a regular basis. So I had all these concoctions that would kind of get me going, sugar and caffeine and Sudafed and exercise and sunlight. And, a lot of that stuff is, well, I mean, a lot of stuff is beneficial for self-treating your ADHD. And so I had this way that was kind of working. It wasn't 100%. It was hard to deal with it if I wasn't maintaining my life, pretty religiously on a strict program. And so downtime would be a lot of screen time, sitting on the internet, and kind of, initially giving myself an excuse for it because I got downtime. Nobody's relying on me. And then, screen time isn't good for ADHD either. So, anyways, so back to seeing the psychologist to get diagnosed for this. So that was the reasons why I was going in, just to find out more options, what's really going on with me, just to know if I have it or I don't. Because if I do, at least I know how to research it on my own. Then I can decide if I want to seek medical help beyond self-care, that kind of stuff. So that led to that. And so that was about a year ago. So fast forward now to, March of 2026. So, like I said, I got winter work. It's not nearly as demanding. It's snow removal, and we don't have a lot of snow here usually. So, I don't have a lot of stuff to do in the winter, and sometimes I work a lot in the summer when it's warm out. So I kind of give myself a little liberty not to push myself too much in the winter if things aren't happening, pursue my hobbies, maybe make more YouTube videos, that kind of stuff. But I was really getting into a rut. And a rut to me was, I literally would have days on end where, and I would, I make my lists, that's another thing that helps with ADHD is your lists, I use paper. I'm an old school guy. I got to have paper. Looking at it on the phone just doesn't, I don't know. It's just hard for me to do it that way. It's hard for me to stay engaged with it. So I got to do paper and a pen. But anyways, got my list of stuff, and I just couldn't break free. It was just like the, the analogy I give was, it's like the door was shut and I couldn't go through it. I just, and I do have depression also, which I'm not or I'm not taking medication for. But I do see a therapist and do some stuff like that. But my depression it's been okay for a while now. It's not bad. I was trying to figure out too if this was like a depression stupor, like end of the world type stuff. And it's like, no, it doesn't feel that way, because it feels like I have this list. I want to do it, but I just can't. And most frustrating thing in the world, because I really try to live life with a can do attitude. And so not being able to power through it, um, and then I was off my routine also. I haven't been going to the gym for a while. That's another thing. I got to fix my gym membership that I had a problem with, and that's been months now. And I still haven't dealt with it. So it's like there's stuff piled up I'm not dealing with. I'm not on my routine that worked. And then I start chasing it with sugar and caffeine. And oh my God. So now I'm the highest weight I've been in 3 years. Or I mean, this is the third time I've been to my heavy weight, which is, a high or mid 200s, 250, 260 ish in there. And I'm not happy with myself over that, because I graduated high school at 145 pounds, I think it was. And, and I've lost weight from 250. This will be my third journey to get off of 250 again. Um, and my time before this, I lost weight. I got down to 177, let's say, somewhere in there. Didn't like that weight. That was too skinny for me. I'm 5'11". I didn't like it. Didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the way I looked. To me, my face looked emaciated, really thin and structure, see all the bones and stuff. I didn't like that. Anyways, it's just, I didn't like the way I felt at that weight. And so I started to feel like my comfortable weight was like 190-ish, somewhere in there. So keep it under 200 was kind of my goal. I guess my ideal weight is supposed to be 170 something, and that's why I went down to that weight. But anyways, didn't feel like it. Didn't like it. So I was comfortable around 189, 190, somewhere in there. So anyways, so going back to the ADHD related stuff. So now we're a year later. I'm struggling. I can't get through the door. I can't do my stuff. I'm putting weight on. I'm chasing it with caffeine and sugar, and which is causing other problems, causing gut problems from drinking so much soda. And that's just making my gut miserable. A lot of acidity, some heartburn off and on. And that contributed to so a lot of this stuff just daisy chained together. And it just, anyway, so that's the reason behind this. Trying to jerk all this stuff out and be done with it and try to get back on path. Um, so I was having some nerve symptoms. And you all should know by now, I'm not a doctor. So anything I'm saying, I'm just talking about my own experience and what's worked for me, just to clarify. Anyways, I was having some nerve stuff, funky tingling and stuff like mid arm. And the reason I emphasize that is because when you have circulatory problems, you get numbness and tingling, and it's usually at your extremities, meaning your fingers and your toes and stuff like that, which could be signs of diabetes, heart problems, that kind of stuff, circulatory issues, whatever. And so that's why I emphasize that. I was having nerve stuff in weird random places, my back, my forearm. And it's like, this is just weird. I've never had stuff like that, tingling nerve sensations. And I talked to my friend, Phil. He was never a doctor or anything like that, but he had some medical experience at one point in his life in the military and stuff. And anyways, not that he's a resource for that, but he had similar experiences. And he recommended getting on B12. So I did some research on B12, and B12 helps with uh, your nerves and stuff like that, and communication with your brain and stuff. And if you let it go on too long, it can become permanent. So it's good. And what I should have done at this point was I should have got a blood test. And that's the other thing. When I'm in the stupor of unproductivity, we'll just say with the ADHD stuff, I don't want to go to the doctor. I'm afraid. I'm scared. I'm unsure. That stuff that goes with my ADHD is uncertainty, lack of confidence in yourself, and that kind of stuff, which is really which really manifests on the not getting anything done. Not feeling confident in yourself to do anything. So, but I did feel like buying B12 and trying it on my own, and I researched what B12 enters your system the best, and blah blah blah, and I was trying to figure out why would I be deficient of B12? And then my mind starts spiraling and I start thinking about, okay, is there a type of cancer that makes it hard for you to absorb B12? And so, I mean, man, I am just torturing myself in my head at this point. So then I'm scared to death to go to the doctor, and it's like, let's just try the B12 for a while. Let's just see if it'll go away if we try the B12. And it's just such an awful place to be in mentally, trapped inside your head. And just, yeah, you become a prisoner to your own thoughts. It's just a horrible thing to do to yourself. Anyways, so I start the B12 and have really good results with it after about 30 days, 3-4 weeks, somewhere in there. I started to notice the tingling subside, and I'm like, okay, but it didn't shut off completely. I was noticing it less frequently, or I didn't notice it, you know whereas it was had a presence with me all the time. And now it was starting to diminish. Like, how when you're sick or have a cold or something like that, and you're not feeling right, but you can kind of feel you're sick. And then as you kind of get out of it and you go back to normal, you might be like a day or two out of it. And you're like, oh, I'm no longer sick. That kind of like because you're used to your normal feeling as long as you haven't been sick for, a real long time. Same with this nerve stuff. It wasn't something that had been going on for years. It was something that had been going on for months. And so it started to subside and go away. And I'm like, that's interesting. That worked. That's good. I'm glad. So I started researching about why am I low on B12? Because what did I do to myself to do this? And if you got gut problems, high acidity and stuff, it impacts the absorption of vitamins and stuff. And because when I looked at sources of B12, like eggs and some protein stuff, and I forget all the stuff. I'm not going to lecture you on that, but it's like, man, I eat a lot of eggs. I should be getting my B12. And then I started reading about my gut, and it's like, and my gut hasn't been the best since drinking all this soda, chasing my ADHD with caffeine, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, my gut's probably messed up. That's probably why okay. Well, and see, and the way B12, if you take the liquid B12, you take it with a dropper under your tongue. So the absorption rate is really good and it gets into your system fast. And it's pretty much guaranteed to go in that way versus absorbing it through your gut with like a vitamin or your diet. So that's why I got such a good result with it. Or that's why I know for sure that was, doing it because it was going in me. It was definitely going in me. And I was seeing the changes. And so like if I was chasing this with a pill that was going through my gut, your absorption of vitamins is impacted, but when your gut's having problems. So a lot of stuff was chaining, daisy chaining together, creating problems for all this. And like I said, so that I'm up in my caffeine, trying to feel normal through caffeine. The only way I get caffeine is through soda, and I don't drink diet. So now I'm pounding on sugar, pounding a lot of caffeine, putting on weight, and weight doesn't make you feel better. Weight impacts you also, energy levels, all that other stuff. It's really snowballing out of control, basically. Um, I don't use any other stimulants or chemicals, cigarettes, alcohol, recreational drugs, illicit, illegal drugs. I don't do any of that stuff. So purely chasing this with sugar and caffeine and whatever else I can, imagine in my head to try and make it work or whatever you want to call it. So let's go. So now I'm getting to the point where I'm really not functioning hardly at all during the week because so if my understanding of ADHD is it's dopamine management in your brain. And we get dopamine from, we can manifest, higher levels of dopamine through stress, like emergency situations or, just stuff in our head that we manifest as being really important. We got to do this. And that's when I functioned the best was under high stress, fire, something's on fire. I come alive. I can multitask like crazy under high pressure. I do really well in those situations. And that's not a necessarily some endearing quality I was born with. The dopamine turns on. I mean, granted, not everybody can do that stuff, but at least with me, that's what it allows me to do. Um, so when I'm not in high stress situations, I don't have a lot of people relying on me. Then I, my understanding is I don't have very much dopamine because dopamine is what gets you to do things, gets you going. And when your dopamine levels are real low, that's when you can fall into this stuff. And so that's what I'm starting to get the understanding from. And I started talking to my son more about it recently. And he's like, you really should go to the doctor and try meds, just because if it's impact, I got a big thing against pills, like a lot of us, we don't like to take meds if we don't have to. There's a lot of us that way. I mean, there's people that love to try meds and see what it does. But, anyways, I'm not a med person. I take multivitamins and Sudafed, and that's it for my meds. Um, so really reluctant to try meds. Um, but at the same time, my life was just not going the way I wanted it to. So it's like I was getting to my crossroad, not happy the way life's going, disappointed with my weight, realizing all this soda and sugar is not helping. The weight's piling on, it's not working, you know. And and what's really hard is people in your life, if anybody just starts to minimalize it and says, all you gotta do is this, all you gotta do is that. It's like, You need to step back and not say that to me right now. If you haven't gone on this trip, it's really doesn't help to say stuff like that. You know, be supportive of people who are going through something like this that they can't control or doesn't, or it's out of control, you know. Supportive isn't beating them with a stick. Supportive is there anything I can do to help you? I want to help you, you know, and I get that from my son, which is great. It's wonderful to have him available for this stuff. Um, so I he gave me a sample of one of his meds. I tried it. Uh, it was very impactful instantly. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know you could turn this off, you know, meaning what was holding me back. And it's like, okay, I need to schedule an appointment. I got to get to the doctor. And the day I took the med for one day, oh my god, I multitask like crazy. I did so many things. I did 3 YouTube videos and I did 3 live streams, then converted them to videos, then made thumbnails, and then plus I went to the post office, went to the bank, I paid some bills online where I hadn't been doing anything for days on end unless it was an emergency type situation. I mean, I'm saying emergency like a deadline. I should say it that way. Deadlines, not like something's on fire for real, but deadlines. And basically just functioning off of deadlines and not having many deadlines or accountability right now is what was helping or making the situation worse. So, anyways, so tried meds for my son. It was a smaller dose and it had a huge impact. Like I said, I had a super productive day and I'm like, okay, one of the things I'm gonna do today is schedule a doctor. And I haven't been to the doctor a long time either, as far as the physical, any of that stuff. And I'm like, let's just do it all. And that's the other thing. The other thing, notorious with me, all or nothing. You know, it's like, well, we're just gonna when we dive in hard. So this was like on a Thursday, and I call a clinic in my area, medical clinic, and tell them, I says, do you have a psychiatrist? No, we don't. Well, what do you want to see a psychiatrist for? I said, well, I've been diagnosed with ADHD and I want to explore options for meds. Oh, she goes, well, we have doctors here that deal with that, dealing with meds for ADHD and treatment. I'm like, okay, great. Well, when do you want to come in? First available. This was on Thursday afternoon. She goes, we got Friday morning at 9. I'm like, sounds perfect. So here I am, kind of back to my old self. Just bing, bang, boom, stack it up. Let's get it done. And so, in response to all this, after experiencing the meds for one day, I'm like, this can bridge the gap I feel for the sugar, the caffeine, and all the unhealthy stuff I'm ingesting to try and bridge the gap. And I'm like, let's stop that now. And that's the way I've quit soda in the past, just cold turkey. I'm done. So Thursday morning was the last time I had a soda. Um, yeah, of any kind. I haven't had Yeah, I haven't had soda of any kind. No, caffeine or non-caffeine, any kind. So Thursday, whatever, March 19th, that's the last time I had a soda. And, you know, you go through the caffeine withdrawals whenever you drop off caffeine. And I know it's gonna be, if anybody ever sees this video, because right now there's nobody watching, but we'll see. See if this stuff sticks. Anyways, you know, somebody will be screaming at you, well, just why are you giving up the caffeine? Why not just keep the caffeine? I don't really like the other sources for caffeine. I don't like coffee. The only way I can do coffee with is to jazz it up with a bunch of other stuff to make it basically soda. I mean, not quite. I mean, it doesn't have all the other crap in there, but it's coffee with milk and chocolate and I don't know. It just seems like an expensive way to do it when I'm capable of doing cold turkey. It's just that not to make excuses when I say just, but when it gets to my natural response to situations, high stress, I want to take caffeine. But to me in my brain that means soda. So I just want to go grab a soda. And so That's the craving or the urge I'm gonna have to fight the hardest is in high stress situations. I run to caffeine because, man, it makes me alert and it gets me even sharper. Let's say quicker with decisions, whatever you want to call it. So that'll be the tricky one is not caving into those urges or maybe trying to come up with something else that I can tolerate as a caffeine source or whatever. So, anyways, so quit soda on the 19th. I also fasted for several hours. I think Thursday night was the last time I mean, Thursday, March 19th, I had a meal that night, a small meal. And I decided I was going to fast for at least 24 hours and try to purge my system of my cravings and reset my appetite or reset my, the way I eat and stuff like that and try to listen more to my body as to when I'm hungry instead of because what I was typically doing is responding to when I can't get stuff done as it being a sign of depletion, meaning I need calories. And so I would try to feed myself through moments I couldn't get anything done because at times when I can't get stuff done, it feels like you're depleted. And it's like, I must be down on calories. But the f- I have to catch myself in that because the feeling of hunger is not the same. Feeling of hunger, I feel deep inside my gut, like right now, because I'm not eating as many calories as I normally do. I can feel it right now. My gut is hungry. Um, but in those situations when I'm feeling when I say depleted, I am using caffeine and sugar to pick me up, as a stimulant, and then puts on the weight. It's not enough to It's enough to keep me going mentally, but it's not enough to burn up all the calories I just threw in there. So it really doesn't really work. So, anyways, so back to the meds and the appointment. Try not to do too much ADHD stuff and wander off. Well, try to keep myself reeled in as best we can here. So, go to the doctor Friday morning. Like I said, I started fasting on Thursday night. Um, and I get to the doctor and, since I've been the doctor in years, had to do a bunch of, paperwork type junk and, make sure you haven't this, make sure you haven't that, what's your this, whatever. Anyways, so do all the catch ups, find out who you are today and where you were yesterday and why you're here. So get this younger female doctor, energetic, pleasant. So I was happy to share my stuff with her, which is, another thing, you know. But at this point, I'm sharing it on the internet. I'm sharing it on the internet on the video, which could be seen by millions. So I'm probably comfortable enough to share it with anybody that's, in the right situation. So, anyways, I told her all the experiences, basically how I started this video off with. And she says, okay, let's start you out then. And she wrote a prescription and give me the background on it and what to expect and all that kind of stuff. And wanted to do a 30-day check. I'm like, okay, great. I says, I haven't had a physical in a long time either. And she's like, well, let's do all your blood work today then too. I'm like, okay. So that was kind of the motivation for this video is, I got a 30-day clock ticking down from the time I had my blood drawn, saw the doctor the first time. And I've made significant changes in my life. Now I'm going to see if I can stick with them and then see what happens after 30 days. Um, like I said, the biggest change of all so far is quitting soda, um, and caffeine, and and then plus we're starting meds, which are supposed to help with other things. So it's going to be a significant change, and the meds actually do some appetite suppression also, which isn't bad in my situation because, like I said, my goal right now is to lose at least 50 pounds and then go from there. And that's kind of what I've done in the past. Drop 50 to get the biggest chunk out of the way and then fine tune it on the way down, the rest of the way down. So, the diet change and stuff is going to help me immensely at first, I'm sure. We'll start shedding pounds just from dropping soda and appetite going down. But I got to try to get my exercise back up also. So at the time of the appointment, like I said, I was in my 260 ish for weight. My heart, let's see, what was it? My blood pressure was 130 over 70, which was high for me. But I did still have in the system the med that I took from my son, the sample. So, and the meds do elevate your heart rate. So it probably wasn't a true indicator of my heart rate because it was probably slightly influenced. But anyways, not to minimize that. We know what it is, and we're going to look at it what it is in 30 days. So we're going to check our weight, check our blood pressure, and also I don't know the results of the blood test yet. So I don't know what my cholesterol is and that kind of stuff. And but it was taken at the date, whatever, 3, 4 days ago. So that's going to be my baseline. And then I want to get my blood if any of my blood work's out of whack, levels are whatever, not where they should be. I want them to retest again after 30 days since I'm doing significant changes to see if 30 days made a difference. Because you can correct your cholesterol in a short amount of time by strictly changing your diet. So, I mean, for example, so I want to see what happens in 30 days. So that's kind of the point of this video was use this as a starting point, see what makes a difference. I need to get back on my exercise schedule, of course. That's very important. I need to get my gym life back. I mean, and that's kind of back to my all or nothing thing. I do become kind of a gym rat. It's either I go a lot or I don't go. It's hard for me to manage that. If I really, what I have to do is I have to be in the routine of going at least 6 days a week. And then I'll cut myself back as I start to make progress and get used to having a routine again and start to, hit my goals. Because then maintaining the goals is kind of the motivation to go. Where initially it's just getting myself wanting to go, and not giving yourself a break is the way to go. And people can be critical of that. Gotta give yourself a break. I'm not saying all these every day is a hard workout. I just have to be in the routine of going. So a slower day, I may just walk for a half hour on the treadmill. A good day, I may walk a half hour, 45 minutes and do weights. So the biggest thing for me is just having that routine and going and not compromising it, not giving into it. So I got to fix my gym membership. I got to get that going again. That's on my list. So, that's where we're going with this. So, things that help with your ADHD, some of you may be aware of, is structure, lists. Lists help me a lot. Lists help me immensely. A list, list of things to do. When I'm on, it really does. Meaning I'm functioning at my 100% or whatever you want to call it. I knock out lists really good. And my lists when I'm not doing well are almost like punishing reminders that you're not functioning, you know. But I still got to have them. But that's critical thing. Thing important with ADHD is not beating yourself up over it and realizing you're struggling with some things. It's not 100% under your control. It's dopamine management, which there are like we've discussed, there are things you can do for it on your own that help it and manage it, and that may not work for everybody, but it does help it. So I mean, working out helps me out a lot when I'm got my weight down and got everything back. As long as I stay with it and get the endorphin rush and all that kind of stuff, it sets the pace for my day. Really, I hit my best days start at the gym. My worst days are the days I don't go to the gym. So hopefully the meds will fill the gap until I get back into the routine of what did work for me in the past. And if it doesn't work for me and I'm still able to achieve my goals and it requires the meds now moving forward, I'm going to stay with the meds because I really, really didn't like my life the way it's been recently. And also, they say vitamin D is a big thing that helps, or sunlight. So, vitamin D, take vitamin D, especially if you live in these cold weather states like I do, where you don't get the sun as often. I mean, people live in the southern part of the country. You guys are blessed with sunlight. I hope you go outside because it's really beneficial to your health. If you can get natural vitamin D, by all means. Do that for yourself. It's wonderful. So that'll help me too as I shift from winter to summer. I'll be outside a lot more, and that helps me out a lot. I've come to a point in my life I know I can't work inside, meaning have an indoor job anymore. I can't function indoors. I just can't. The lack of activity, because most jobs are sedentary that are indoors. You know, a lot of them are. I hate, light bulbs. I love natural light. Light bulbs, oh my God. I just hate indoor light. I hate the light bulbs. Just I'm realizing that later in life. I just feel better outside, feel energized. So maybe that's something to think about as a long term or short term or long term is get out of this state and move to a better state where I feel better. State that has more sunshine or at least better weather so we're outside more. When a winter state, we have raining, we have rain in the summer and stuff. It's not, anyways, that's going down the rabbit hole and other stuff. But, anyways, back to the ADHD stuff. But so, yeah, other helpful things. Yeah, I mean, diet. I've read a lot about high protein diets help with um, ADHD, and I can see that because just of the natural things that happen from high carb diets, carb crash, carb coma, that kind of stuff where you feel heavy and stuff. And that's why the sugar and the caffeine stuff was really bad for me because I am getting that kick from the sugar. Then you crash so hard, but then you want to keep it going. You take more sugar, it's like, ugh, it's just a vicious circle to be in. Um, so I'm going to try to lean my diet out as much as I can. Um, Limit the sugar, cut out the soda, go higher protein, that kind of stuff. Re-implement exercise. Uh, Try these meds. Probably will. Yeah, I don't know. I'll follow the guidelines of the meds for now. See what it does. Give it a fair shake. See where we're at. The meds at first did feel intrusive, meaning it's right there. You can feel them in you. You can feel its presence, which I don't like. I'm not a chemical person. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't dabble in chemicals. I don't recreational drugs. I don't do that. I don't do nicotine, cigarettes, that kind of stuff. Don't do alcohol. Just sugar and caffeine are my vices in that regard. So I'm hoping the meds will fill the gap of what little I was getting from sugar and caffeine. So I will try to purge that from my system and see if I can run without that. Um, if the mental alertness thing is kind of bugging me, I'll try to figure out a different way to bring caffeine back in because there are literally caffeine pills, which I think the ones I saw were 120 milligrams. And I think the soda I was drinking was roughly 30 milligrams of caffeine per serving. So that's, like four sodas. Yeah. And I'd have 2 to 4 sodas in a day. So that could get me the caffeine I want, back to the same level. And as a reference from what I've read, they want you to I've seen stay under 400 milligrams and I've seen stay under 300 milligrams, but either way, I was under 200 milligrams. So I wasn't ingesting a lot of caffeine, but whatever. I don't like not having caffeine. It's not, it's not a pleasant feeling. The brain does feel slower. If you look at some of my other videos on this channel, probably see a pretty surprising difference the way my energy is. Um, but so, I don't know. Figure it out as we go, one day at a time. So, like I said, today is what is it, 23rd, and I started the 19th. So we're only 4 or 5 days in. Yeah, it's definitely the caffeine being gone is noticeable. The sugar cravings aren't as bad. They're definitely less of it. I'm sure the fasting helped kind of reset my wanting to eat and how I eat and what I crave. But where I'm going to struggle is my natural instinct in situations. Like I was saying before, with high stress, I want to ingest caffeine, meaning soda. So I got to pay attention to those little things to see if I get, see if I get triggered and want to jump down that road. Cause that's what, the last time I quit soda, what put me back on soda. I mean, and this is not making excuses for my life. This is what triggered in me, and I used it to my advantage in that time, and it worked for me at that time. I had started a new business, and it was basically hosting events. And we'd have, maybe 100 and some people, and I'd have a small crew of people that were working for me. And it was in a style of event where people could get hurt, could even die potentially. And I called it adult daycare because we had to watch these people because left to their own, they could increase their danger or increase the risk of themselves much higher. So it was I called it adult daycare. I had to manage these people for a good solid 8, 9, 10 hours, and it was high stress. Caffeine gets me through that. So that's what led me back to soda. I initially wasn't on soda when I started that business, and then I kind of fell into it. And it's like, yeah, that gets my decision making, my fast making decisions. I need to make split second stuff, So yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna have to figure out a different way to ingest caffeine. I just got to figure out a way to do it that isn't soda, that will satisfy my need for it or urge for it or whatever you want, my craving, and figure out how to implement that without, like I said, without using soda. So that'll be a big struggle, or as big a struggle as I want it to be, I guess. So yeah, higher protein, lower carbs, avoid the carb crashing. So you're not eating more carbs to get you out of the carb crash, that kind of junk. Break some bad habits again. I say that again because, like I said before, this will be my third journey to lose weight. And I'm just grateful that I don't have any physical limitations yet at my age that would keep me from doing it the ways I want to do it, meaning a lot of walking. I enjoy walking. I sometimes when I'm losing weight, sometimes I'll walk, you know, 3 to 5 miles a day, somewhere in there, so it takes a little bit of time out of your day, a little bit of commitment, and I enjoy it, especially this time of year. Now you can walk outside. So, like I said, I'm just grateful I don't have knee problems or something like that because I'm glad my physical part of me is still functioning well enough. I can do physical activities that'll make it easier to lose weight or, you know, assist it. But like I said, the diet will make a big difference too. Cutting out cutting out a lot of the sugar, you know, eliminating soda. So yeah, I don't know. I got cravings right now. I need to eat. My gut feels hungry and I feel a little slow and sluggish. And I'm trying to pay attention now as I eat. I'm trying to shrink my portion size because I can still eat the way I did when I was a kid if I want to. I don't feel full. That's another punishment to me is I can eat. I don't have that cue. Oh, you're full. You got to stop. No, I can just keep piling it on. So trying to stay aware of portion sizes, dial them back. Lately for breakfast, I've been doing like a 4 egg omelet and half a bagel. And it doesn't stick with me long. The only carbs is half a bagel. So, and protein burns through you pretty quick. It doesn't, yeah. So, but yeah. Anyways, so like I said, trying to stay more higher protein. So I have to figure out what meals I can do throughout the day. Maybe start snacking on veggies again, something like that. So, but yeah, we're rolling on 50 minutes. I'm starting to really talk in circles now. I need to eat. I need to get my day going because what is it, my time? It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And what have I done this morning? Have I done anything? Yeah, I got my list going. I did want to make 2 videos today, and I've made 2 videos. So I've done that part of my day. Now we'll knock off or work on our to-do list, our adulting stuff. Like go to the grocery store. And what else do we got on there? Pay some bills. Get tabs for my license tabs for my work truck. And yeah, got all sorts of stuff to do. I'm going to try to be productive. Hope you're productive. Hope you aren't struggling with this like I am. Hope you're doing better than I am. If you're not, we're here to support you. If we can in any way, say something in the comments, whatever. If you like this kind of content, let me know in the comments. I'd like to know if this is type of stuff that's getting any traction with anybody. Usually view count says that, but not always, because sometimes people just click on stuff and leave right away. So it's not always a good indicator, but if you get enough people commenting and saying, yeah, I'm dealing with this too. Here's my side of it. Like talking to you or like hearing your side of it, hear your perspective, whatever. If you got anything positive or constructive, I don't care. I've done enough YouTube videos now where if you want to slam me and grind into me and say negative crap, I don't care anymore. I'm not too worried about what other people say or their opinions, if they're going to be crass or mean or whatever. So that stuff I'm pretty impermeable to. Oh boy. But yeah, caffeine will be the thing to work on next. How to implement caffeine, because I don't feel the quickness or the sharpness right now. Got to figure out how I'm going to reinstitute that. But I do like the way I'm feeling as far as the eating less and purging some stuff from my diet, and then trying to figure out what I'm going to reintroduce and how I'm going to reintroduce, getting rid of the high sugar stuff, getting rid of soda. I mean, and just as an example, the last 2 times I went on my weight loss, I quit soda, quit high sugar stuff like treats, and started walking. And that was it. That's how I lost weight the other 2 times. And it'll probably work again as long as I don't, as long as I keep my calories in check. Because I do notice that getting older, not burning the calories as easily, So and that's the punishment of not feeling full is how do you keep in check when you're eating, not to overeat, not eat more than you need when your gut's not telling you to stop, it's like, so I'm gonna have to stay actively aware of my portion sizes, and portion sizes of what I'm eating in particular, like protein versus carbs, and try to figure out, because, we're such a high carbohydrate society. I mean, go look in a gas station. Try to find a healthy treat in a gas station, you know, convenience store, that kind of stuff. Everything in there is loaded with sugar. Everything there is some variant of sugar and flour, with the exception of soda doesn't have flour, but everything's a variant of sugar. You got walls and walls of refrigerator cases full of different sodas and frozen drinks and refrigerated drinks or whatever. And then you got the big soda dispenser machine. And then you've got all the snack aisles, and all the snacks are carbohydrates, unhealthy carbohydrates for the most part. So that's where I kind of fall into traps too. And I'm out in the world and I need something quick to eat. And you go in a gas station, it's like, what a trap. How do I find something to eat that isn't really gonna, something I'm trying to stay away from lately? I mean, I haven't been in a gas station in a while because haven't been working as much this time of year, but usually my go-to is when I'm trying not to eat crappy is just peanuts, sunflower seeds, something like that. Cause at least it's not a sugar, flour and a sugar thingy, that and water. And that's the other thing, when you're used to drinking stuff with calories, water doesn't give you a bump. Water is just only hydrating you at this point. So it can kind of help with the urges to drink something, and, you're replacing it with water versus soda, but you're still not feeling any relief to calorie deficiencies or needing a little up, or your brain needs a little something, something to keep it going. You're not getting that little sugar, little caffeine. So you're still kind of mentally in that place. So I gotta figure out how to replace that when my brain's calling for some nutrition or whatever, and to keep, whether it be something like, say, clementine, something that's sugary and sweet and juicy, tastes pretty good. And, it's kind of like a candy of the fruit world, a clementine, apples, stuff like that, stuff that's sugary, sweet, and get that little sensation or that thrill of sugar, So yeah, got to realize water isn't going to help me out in that situation. So until I find something healthier to drink. Yahoo, baby. Anyways, I was trying to stretch her to a minute. It's getting pretty hard. That's what she said. Arr. Anyways, the caffeine definitely, the lack of it is, I can be pretty quick-witted, and I think I'm funny. Some days I really am funny. Some days only I think I'm funny. But we'll figure it out. So, gonna need my caffeine edge back. I definitely know that. Boy, trying to string this out to an hour. We're not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. We're gonna fall short, and we're not gonna beat ourselves up for it either. So, anyways, you made it this far. Thank you very much. Hope you're doing well. Drop a comment, like, comment, subscribe. Subscribing helps a lot. Comments helps a lot. If you don't feel comfortable leaving comments, subscribe. That helps the channel a lot. The most right now is a new channel. So yeah, have a great day. Hope you're doing well. God bless you all, and we'll talk to you soon.